Hello, hello. I'm Casey,
And I'm Fallon.
and this is Render the Darkness. Okay, so today's episode I will be being done by me. I'm Casey. I'm going to start it off with the worldly fact because looking at the polls, it seems like people are really liking the worldly facts, so I'm going to keep that in.
Oh, cool.
The worldly fact for this episode is that the oldest unopened bottle of wine was found in a Roman tomb that is over 1,650 years old. It is said to date back to between 325 to 350 AD.
Wow, that's old as heck. I wonder if they're going to open it to see if it tastes good.
I don't know.
Because, wine gets better with age.
That's pretty damn aged.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet that's some really good or really funky wine.
I would also like to apologize for the quality of the last episode I posted, which was the case of Albert Decker. We quickly realized that it didn't sound great, and that's because we tried to use a different recording program for that one, which we will not be using in the future. So if you caught any echo or reverb or had a hard time listening to it, we just wanted to take a second to apologize, and hopefully the sound quality only improves from here on out. We're kind of new. We're figuring out the kinks and doing our best. That being said, let's move on to the case. Today I'm going to be discussing the case of Debra Jean Vaughn. This is a missing person case, and it is also a listener recommendation. I actually had several listener recommendations for this exact case, ironically, that came in kind of back to back.
Really?
Yeah, I had obviously the initial recommendation that came in, and then as I was working on this case, I had two more listeners that recommended this case. So,
Nice.
Which is really good because people are really aware of this case and they're really wanting as much information as can be put out there. So,
Yeah. Okay.
That being said, I want to thank them for recommending it to us and giving us an opportunity to be the ones to try to bring further awareness to the case. And hopefully that's what comes out of this.
Yeah, get it out there.
Get it out there, get it heard, and hopefully try to bring some kind of closure or new information or something for this case. Okay. Debra Jean Vaughn was born August 15th, 1956. She sadly went missing on July 24th, 1993. She was married to a man named Gerald W. Vaughn at the time of her disappearance. There definitely seemed to be a history of domestic violence among the couple, according to Debra's family.
Oh, no.
From what I understand, Debra also went by the nickname Debbie, so it also seemed like that was her preferred name to be called, so I will be referring to her as Debbie for the rest of the episode.
Okay.
According to her sister, she could recall several times that Debbie had reached out to her due to situations of violence. A couple examples of that would be the time that Debbie told her sister that Gerald had locked her out of the home that he and her had shared together in Gris Ferry, Arkansas.
Oh, wow. That's not very far from me.
In another example, Debbie told her sister that Gerald had set all of her clothes on fire.
Dang.
So, seems like there definitely was some history there.
Yeah, definitely nothing good.
Debbie's mother, whose name is Dixie Bowling, reported to police that Debbie had shown up to her house in Sherwood, Arkansas, beaten and battered due to an episode of violence between Debbie and Gerald the night before Debbie went missing. Debbie told her mother that night that she was making the decision to officially leave Gerald, but that she needed to go back to the couple's home in order to gather some of her stuff. The plan was for Dixie and Debbie to go together the following day when Dixie got off work and get her belongings, but Debbie didn't wait. Dixie was reported as saying, quote, I was getting ready to get off work at 6 a.m. She had coffee and her face was black on one side. And I said, Debbie, when I get off work, I'll go with you and we'll get your truck and we'll get what you want from the trailer that I paid for. Dixie said that Debbie responded by saying, quote, I promise you, Mother, I'll wait for you to get off work. Well, she didn't wait, end quote.
No.
That was the last time Dixie would speak to her daughter. When Dixie got off work and couldn't get a hold of Debbie, she called and spoke to Gerald. According to her, she spoke to him several times, and he told a different story every time. Dixie claimed that he admitted to her that he and Debbie had agreed to get a divorce, but he also tried to say Debbie had stolen his workers' comp settlement that he had recently received and ran off with a trucker who he also claimed owned his own trucking company, which kind of makes one wonder if that's true, then why would she need to take his money? But Dixie tried over and over to report her daughter missing. However, every time she tried and the police would speak to Gerald, he would say that he was still hearing from her. So with no evidence of foul play, it took them 5 months to actually file a missing persons report or to launch an investigation.
Dang.
Once they did start, they were able to find a lot of her belongings. Some of the belongings they found included her clothes, jewelry, makeup, a sewing machine, and even some items that apparently her grandfather had given her or belonged to her grandfather. This stuff was found in the southern part of Cleburne County, Arkansas, in a place called Pine Snag, thrown into a junk pile.
Yeah, I've heard of Pine Snag.
She also had a safety deposit box that held some of her more valuable stuff that was found that she just left behind. It should also be noted that she left driving the couple's Monte Carlo. However, that car was also never found.
Weird.
Debbie was known to take off every now and then, sometimes for several days at a time. But according to Dixie, Debbie always kept in contact with her when she would do this. And also, she said that anytime this would happen, typically within a couple hours of her leaving, Gerald was out scouring locations and looking anywhere he could think of for her. But for some reason, he didn't do that this time, which seems pretty suspicious.
Yeah, you figure he would be trying to track her down. And it's his wife. I mean, I know they had issues, but...
You would think. While the police were investigating this case, Debbie's family were doing some investigating of their own. It was said they poured money into finding her for 3 years after her disappearance.
Wow.
At one point, they had communicated with a psychic who told them that Debbie was in Goose Ferry Lake. So they even went so far as to hire divers to search the lake, but unfortunately to no avail.
Dang,
That's a
crazy.
big lake. Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot to... During the investigation, since Gerald was the last person to have seen Debbie, and because he was her spouse, he was considered a person of interest and was interviewed several times. When he was asked about the history of domestic violence, he outright denied these claims, saying he had never laid a hand on her. He even went so far as to tell detectives that they weren't even fighting at the time of her disappearance, nor had they been. He kind of tried to shift the focus back to Debbie having just taken off. Debbie was known to be a bit of a drinker, so Gerald really emphasized that Debbie had a drinking problem and that he had recently been urging her to seek help. According to him, a month after he and Debbie had talked about her drinking, he had gotten a call from his wife telling him she was on the run due to quote-unquote warrants, so she had fled. And then he claimed that to be the last time that he spoke to her. The detectives looked into Gerald's warrants claim, and she didn't have any.
That's not surprising. And was her mom just lying about her coming over with black and blue bruises and just being all beaten up? She's just making that shit up? Excuse my language.
According to him, yes. According to what he told detectives, yes.
But
his story, seemingly from all of what I could read and find in my research, his stories regularly changed. Like, he had an answer for everything and an excuse for everything, but they weren't always the same answers or the same excuses.
Gotcha.
So,
even more suspicious.
The detectives also did a search on the couple's home. There weren't any signs of foul play. However, they did notice that the carpet, as well as most of the furniture in the living room, seemed to be brand new. Ooh. So, there's that, which also seems rather suspicious.
Very suspicious.
They ended up having Gerald take a polygraph test, and it came back that he was being deceptive. One thing I read in one of the articles that supposedly the same night he took that polygraph, the police received a phone call someone claiming to have seen Gerald walking down the road completely intoxicated, soaking wet up to his chest. I couldn't find anything else about that, so I don't know if that was true or false. But if it is true, that's pretty strange.
Yeah, it's kind of strange.
But I couldn't find anything else about that, so I don't know if that was the police ever located him or questioned him after that or found him, or if that actually happened.
Yeah, gotcha.
So despite all of the suspiciousness surrounding Gerald, he was never actually considered a suspect in anything. Only a person of interest in her disappearance. And I think that's because they lacked any evidence that wasn't circumstantial so they couldn't really pursue the case any further, because without Debbie or the vehicle that she left in, there wasn't really any way to prove foul play.
Right.
So sadly, this is kind of where the story ends, because they couldn't really go any further in their investigation.
Gotcha. So they didn't have enough evidence to say he did it
or didn't do it.
They didn't find her. Didn't find her car.
Correct.
Nothing.
And her and her car are sadly and unfortunately still missing to this day.
Wow, that's really weird.
Yeah, it's a very sad case. So, I would like to end this case by giving you the information that was current for Debbie at the time that she went missing, with hopes that maybe somebody out there will have more information or may know something, anything, and also just to kind of get her information out there into the world one more time.
Yeah.
If nothing else, just so people know she's not forgotten and her story is still there, and hopefully this helps bring something positive to this case. But as I said before, her name was Debra Jean Vaughn. She's been missing since July 24th, 1993. She was 36 at the date of her disappearance, so from my calculations, she would be about 68 now. She was 5'7" and 110 pounds. She had brown hair and brown eyes. She had tattoos on her buttocks and her left breast. She was driving a blue 2-door 1980 Chevrolet Monte Carlo with the Arkansas plate number WWC696, and the vehicle's registration number, or the VIN number, is 1Z3SEKAR452303. She was last seen at her home in Grist Ferry, Cleburne County, Arkansas. If you or someone you know has any information, please reach out to the Cleburne County Sheriff's Department. Phone number 501-362-8143. Her case number is 940131, M as in Mary, P. You can call anonymously if you would prefer to not be known, but any help or information that can be given would be greatly appreciated.
Wow, that's sad.
It is sad. So that is our case for today. And as always, If you have any listener recommendations or any cases that you would like to hear covered, if you think we do a good job and you would like us to cover it for you, please feel free to reach out. You can find us on Amazon Music, Spotify, Buzzsprout. We also have an Instagram, TikTok, X or Twitter, Facebook. Our email is renderthedarknesspod@gmail.com. If you'd like to reach out to us personally with any questions, comments, recommendations, we are open to any and all of that, and we would love to hear from you. And we appreciate you spending your time with us today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Your time is greatly appreciated.
So we are Render the Darkness. Bye.
Bye.